Which brings us to the first topic today. Pablo Torre and I got together again earlier this week. We did about an hour and a half, somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours. Now, it got edited down to an hour, and I should probably go watch the latest episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out, which delves into yet another grievance ruling between the NFL and the NFL Players Association that was hidden. The last time around, it was the collusion ruling that the NFLPA should have been trumpeting, partial win, plenty of evidence pointing to actual collusion. It was hidden until Pablo and I worked together to shake the trees enough to make the fruit fall, and he's the one that found the decision. Now, remember, part of the why, we were trying to figure out why. Why would the NFLPA hide this ruling? And one reason was that current executive director Lloyd Howell doesn't necessarily want to give his predecessor, DeMaurice Smith, any credit. And by trumpeting a grievance that had been the brainchild of D. Smith, had been initiated by him, instigated by him, pursued by him, if that ends up being a win, then all of a sudden the D. Smith gain leverage through litigation approach may seem better than Lloyd Howell's idea that we should try to get along and go along and move along arm in arm with the NFL. Someone reached out to me in the aftermath of the last round of this and said, hey, there's another reason why they want to keep this quiet. There's another reason why, and I didn't mention earlier, the whole J.C. Tretter, Russell Wilson text messages. Remember that? That was one of the proffered reasons for burying the decision, to protect Tretter against embarrassment for saying mean things about Russell Wilson when he didn't take a fully guaranteed contract. So someone reached out and said there's another reason they may be trying to protect J.C. Tretter, because there was another grievance and it didn't go well for the union. And J.C. Tretter is the one who was in the crosshairs of it. And so if that one's kept quiet in return for the partial victory in the collusion ruling grievance being kept quiet, it's a nice little convenient quid pro quo. So that, along with just the general desire to update the situation, the Lloyd Howell conflict of interest, all the other things happening within the union as this case moves forward, as the collusion grievance moves forward, there's going to be an appeal. Could it be settled? We thought it made sense to get together and have another session. And one of the things that we learned in advance of the most recent episode of Pablo Torre Finds Out, there was indeed a grievance that was filed by the league against the union for the comments made by J.C. Tretter on Ross Tucker's podcast 2 years ago, during which Tretter essentially suggested to then disgruntled running backs, if you don't like your situation, fake an injury. You can't be fined for not practicing because you're injured. Now, I can't say that publicly, but so that became a grievance. And it was a clear winner for the NFL. And the NFL knew about it for months. It was issued on February 20, just a month and a few days after the collusion ruling came out, February 20 of 2025. It wasn't publicized. It wasn't leaked. It wasn't announced. I suggested earlier today that the league hid it from its constituents. The league sent me an on-the-record statement saying that the owners and other key personnel were told about it in March at Palm Beach. Now, I asked the general manager the other day about the fake injury grievance. What are you talking about? Was basically I don't know anything about that. Once I told this person the details that J.C. Tretter had suggested that running backs fake injuries. I don't know anything about that. So maybe this GM wasn't in the room when they provided the update. And even if they did tell the teams about it, they managed to keep it from becoming public. They've got reporters who are on the payroll. Very easy to give them documents that would allow them to report that the NFL had won this slam dunk grievance, which ultimately created a cease and desist order telling the NFLPA to not violate the CBA by basically encouraging players to stage individualized strikes. That's what it is. You can't have a strike during the term of the CBA. Well, if a player is deciding to create his own strike by faking an injury, that's a problem. If you're telling him to do it, That's a problem. If you're suggesting he should do it, that's a problem. So they were told, don't do it. Now, does it make sense for the union to trade secrecy as to the collusion ruling for secrecy as to the J.C. Treader fake injury grievance? Does that make sense to the rank and file? Does that make sense? Is that in the best interest of the players? No. It's in the best interest of J.C. Treader, possibly Lloyd Howell, the only two witnesses called in that hearing, and they were both called by the NFL, not by the NFLPA. So that's for others to decide. That's for the players, if they care about their union, to ask some tough questions, to seek some clear answers, to maybe insist on some decisive action. Because it sure looks like, from the perspective of an outsider, a meddling outsider who wants to be the executive director of the union or whatever other stuff they're saying to get the players on the executive committee to not listen to me, whatever that may be. And I really don't, I'm past that. I don't care. I don't even need to say it again. I have no desire to be the executive committee of the NFLPA. I would never do it, ever, 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 never. So, and I'm not trying to install someone who would then do favors for me or whatever else, however else the sausage gets made in positions like that. I'm not interested. I'm interested in helping the players. And the point is this: the players at some point need to care, and they need to wonder what's really going on here. And as I've said before, the league has weaponized their apathy against them for years. More recently, it feels like non-player leadership of the union is weaponizing the players' apathy against them. Now, hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.